Have you ever found yourself saying, I feel like I keep dating the same person, just with a different name, or all my friendships seem to end up in the same emotional rut? Maybe you've experienced a revolving door of relationships, romantic or otherwise, that begin with a spark but conclude in the same old disappointment. On the surface, it can seem like an eerie coincidence, almost as if the universe is playing a cosmic joke on us by sending us mirror images of people we swore we'd never get involved with again. Yet, in many ways, these recurrences are neither random nor purely coincidental. Instead, they often reflect deeper patterns within ourselves, patterns rooted in our upbringing, our attachment styles, and the unspoken beliefs we hold about love, worthiness, and belonging. On top of that, many spiritual traditions and energetic practices suggest that we attract people who vibrate on the same frequency as our own thoughts and feelings, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. This dual perspective, one anchored in psychology and the other in spirituality or energy work, can help us understand why these cycles keep showing up in our lives. Moreover, they illuminate a path out of them if we're willing to invest the time and introspection to make meaningful change. Our journey today involves peeling back multiple layers to see what really fuels these repetitive relationship dynamics. We'll discuss the concept of repetition compulsion, learn how our early life experiences shape our subconscious attraction to certain personality types, and get a clearer picture of how attachment styles govern the ways we bond with others. From a more spiritual angle, we'll explore how our thoughts and energy can call in particular types of people, essentially magnetizing what we believe we deserve or what we're used to. We'll also dive into the idea of soul lessons, or how each repeated pattern can be a potent teacher if we allow it to guide us towards self-awareness and healing. Finally, we'll look at practical ways to shift these patterns, from therapy and journaling to mindfulness and boundary setting, so we can form healthier, more authentic connections. Transforming these cycles is rarely an overnight process, but the reward is immense. Healthier relationships that reflect a kinder, more self-aware, and more self-compassionate inner world. So, let's embark on this exploration together. By the end of this journey, my hope is that you'll feel empowered to break the cycles that have kept you tethered to unfulfilling dynamics, and that you'll see the tremendous potential for growth that lies in every repeated pattern. At the heart of many recurring relationship scenarios is a phenomenon psychologists call repetition compulsion. In simple terms, this means we are drawn, often unconsciously, to reenact emotional or relational dynamics that feel familiar, even if these dynamics are unhealthy or painful. Picture a person who repeatedly finds themselves in relationships with partners who fail to meet their emotional needs. They may consciously wish for a stable, supportive bond, yet time and again they end up with people who offer inconsistency, disrespect, or even abuse. Onlookers might wonder, why doesn't this person break the cycle? But from the inside, it's rarely so clear-cut. Repetition compulsion isn't about masochism or self-sabotage in the way we might think. Instead, it frequently stems from an internalized sense of what normal looks like in a relationship. If an individual grew up witnessing emotionally distant parents who offered minimal affection, they might equate love with longing and emotional inaccessibility. While part of them consciously desires closeness and security, another part, often buried in the subconscious, recognizes emotional distance as home base. Feeling drawn to a partner who is similarly distant or withholding then feels oddly comfortable. This pattern can bring with it a sense of familiarity, which our subconscious can falsely interpret as safety. In some cases, repetition compulsion manifests as a drive to fix the past. If a child felt overlooked or rejected by a caregiver, they might grow into an adult who unconsciously seeks out people who replicate that same sense of rejection. The subconscious storyline is, this time, I'll make them stay. This time, I'll do everything right. There's an unspoken hope that if they can triumph in this new iteration of the old dynamic, it will retroactively heal the original wound. Unfortunately, it usually leads to the same heartbreak, fueling a cycle that feels nearly impossible to break, until we recognize it for what it is. Beyond repetition compulsion, our earliest experiences of love, belonging, and emotional safety profoundly influence our adult relationships. As infants and young children, We're essentially blank slates, learning about the world and ourselves through every interaction with the people closest to us. If our caregivers were consistently attuned to our emotional and physical needs, we internalized a sense of security and worthiness. On the other hand, if they were inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or overly harsh, we may have come to see love as something unpredictable, conditional, or even frightening. These early experiences are much like seeds planted in fertile soil. They take root and grow, often without our conscious awareness, coloring our worldview in subtle yet powerful ways. When a caregiver is loving but occasionally withdrawn, a child might learn that closeness feels wonderful but can vanish at any moment. As an adult, this person may feel both compelled to seek closeness and terrified of its potential loss. The result is what many describe as push and pull relationships, where longing for intimacy gets overshadowed by the fear of abandonment. In other scenarios, a child might have experienced emotional or physical neglect, learning that their feelings and needs are unimportant or burdensome. As adults, they might gravitate toward relationships in which their needs remain unmet, reinforcing a narrative that they are unworthy of full attention or devotion. Alternatively, they may unconsciously select people they feel they can fix, mirroring the role they might have wished someone had taken on for them. The complexity and variety of these early lessons are vast, but the principle is the same. We gravitate toward what our childhood taught us to expect, even if that expectation is painful. Building upon these early experiences, our attachment styles are formed, primarily categorized as secure, anxious, avoidant, or a combination of anxious-avoidant, also referred to as fearful-avoidant. A secure attachment style arises from consistent, reliable caregiving. People who develop secure attachments typically feel comfortable with closeness and independence. They trust that their needs will be met in a relationship, and they reciprocate this trust, fostering an environment of emotional safety. An anxious attachment style often forms when a caregiver's responses are inconsistent or unpredictable. The child, and later the adult, never knows if they will receive attention or be dismissed. This uncertainty creates a high level of hypervigilance around relationships, leading to the adult seeking reassurance and validation, sometimes excessively. They might text their partner repeatedly if they don't receive a reply, or they might worry incessantly about being left. Ironically, the very behaviors they use to seek closeness can push their partner away, perpetuating a self-fulfilling prophecy. An avoidant attachment style is typically forged when a caregiver is consistently emotionally unavailable, dismissive, or harshly critical. The child learns early on that showing emotions or vulnerability doesn't lead to care or comfort. They may then develop an internal rule that emotions are best handled alone, eventually becoming adults who struggle with intimacy or closeness. Their mantra might be something like, "I don't need anyone," or "relying on people is risky." In relationships, they may dismiss a partner's emotional needs or withdraw at signs of conflict. A fearful avoidant or anxious avoidant style emerges from a caregiver dynamic that is not only unpredictable, but also sometimes frightening. For example, if a parent alternates between warmth and abusive behavior, the child feels an intense push-pull of needing the caregiver for survival, but also fearing them. As adults, they may crave deep connection, but are simultaneously terrified of being hurt. They can oscillate between intense clinginess and sudden detachment, leaving both them and their partners emotionally exhausted. Regardless of the specific attachment style, the crux is that these ingrained ways of relating are like filters through which we see all our interpersonal experiences. If we have an anxious style, we might inadvertently seek partners who confirm our worst fears. If we're avoidant, we might be magnetized to people who want more closeness, giving us another reason to retreat. Recognizing these styles in ourselves is a powerful first step in changing the script. Otherwise, we risk perpetually attracting and being attracted to those who fit our unconscious blueprint, no matter how ill-suited they are to our conscious desires. While psychology provides a tangible framework for understanding repetitive relationship patterns, many spiritual and energetic traditions offer an additional lens. They suggest that our internal emotional states and beliefs broadcast an energetic signal, like a radio frequency, that attracts people, situations, and experiences on the same wavelength. It's not magic or mysticism in the sense of conjuring illusions. Rather, it's rooted in the idea that everything in the universe operates at certain frequencies. Our thoughts, emotions, and even our unconscious beliefs emit energy that can resonate with external factors. Imagine you're tuning a radio dial. If you set the dial to a specific channel, you'll only pick up that station. Energetically, the same principle may apply. If you harbor deep-seated feelings of unworthiness, shame, or fear, you might inadvertently tune yourself to people who perpetuate those feelings. This isn't about blame. It's more about understanding that we can carry vibrations, either high or low, that align with specific experiences. For instance, if someone consistently carries a sense of, "I am not enough," they might find themselves meeting friends or partners who subtly or overtly reinforce that belief. These people could be critical, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable, thereby echoing the internal script of unworthiness. In contrast, if a person works diligently on self-love, self-acceptance, and healthy boundary setting, their energetic frequency may shift. Over time, they're more likely to resonate with people who match their healthier, more positive self-view. While psychology might label this phenomenon as confirmation bias or self-fulfilling prophecy, spiritual traditions call it the law of attraction or simply energy alignment. It's important to note that energetic alignment doesn't operate purely on the conscious level. You might affirm, "I deserve a loving, compassionate partner," and truly believe you've turned over a new leaf. But if old wounds, fears, or self-doubts remain unaddressed in the subconscious, those hidden vibrations can be just as potent as your affirmations. We often attract not what we want, but what we believe we deserve or expect, especially at the deepest levels of our psyche. As a result, doing surface-level work, like repeating a few affirmations or making a vision board, may not be sufficient if we haven't delved into the underlying emotional and psychological scars that shape our self-image. It's one thing to intellectually say, "I want a healthy relationship." It's another thing entirely to break the belief that you're unlovable unless you compromise your boundaries or sacrifice your needs. When that core belief begins to change, the energy or frequency you emit also shifts, and so does the kind of person you draw into your life. Sometimes, past traumas create what might be described in energetic terms as blocks or congestion. Think of it like a kink in a garden hose. The water pressure is there, but it can't flow freely if part of the hose is twisted. Emotional trauma, be it from childhood neglect, abuse, or a series of heartbreaks, can create these blockages, making it difficult for us to attract healthier relationships. Instead, the energy might loop back on itself, repeatedly drawing in similar experiences that match the unresolved trauma. This isn't meant to imply that people are to blame for their traumas or for attracting harmful relationships. Rather, it offers a viewpoint that unhealed emotional wounds can continue to vibrate within us, influencing our relationship patterns until we actively work toward healing them. By engaging in modalities that address both emotional and energetic aspects, such as therapy combined with breath work or trauma-informed yoga, we can gradually release these blockages, smoothing out the kinks, so to speak. Once the energy is free to flow, the individuals we attract might begin to mirror our improved internal state, showing up in ways that are more aligned with our healed perspective. From a spiritual standpoint, many teachers suggest that our relationships serve as mirrors, reflecting the aspects of ourselves that most need our attention. If we keep attracting the same types of people, those who abandon, criticize, or devalue us, spiritual wisdom suggests that there's an unhealed aspect of ourselves that feels abandoned, criticized, or devalued. In this sense, the people we encounter are less about external happenstance and more about internal alignment. They show us what we unconsciously believe or where we need to do the most healing. Imagine looking into a mirror every morning, but ignoring your reflection. Each time you pass by, you see an out-of-place detail, maybe messy hair or a smudge on your face, but you walk away and pretend it's not there. Over time, that same messy image will continue to greet you, because you haven't addressed the underlying issue. Similarly, in relationships, if we don't take the time to notice that we keep meeting the same dynamics, we remain stuck with the reflection of our unhealed wounds. Another spiritual concept that often arises around repeated relationship patterns is the idea of soul contracts. While not everyone subscribes to this belief system, it posits that before we are born, our souls make agreements with other souls to meet in this lifetime and help each other learn crucial lessons. If we view life from this angle, the people who repeatedly enter our orbit, especially those who bring challenge, heartache, or conflict, may be fulfilling a sacred contract. They're here to highlight our unhealed wounds, guiding us to evolve, awaken, or transform. In this view, every painful relationship can be seen as an invitation to growth. Instead of labeling ourselves as victims of bad luck, we can approach these patterns with curiosity. What is this person here to teach me? Which parts of myself are they showing me that need love and attention? When we integrate this perspective, it becomes easier to transform resentment, anger, or self-blame into empathy and self-reflection. Of course, this doesn't mean we should remain in harmful or abusive relationships for the sake of a lesson. Rather, it encourages us to use each interaction, no matter how difficult, as a stepping stone toward greater self-understanding and emotional freedom. A helpful metaphor for spiritual development is the spiral. We might circle back to similar lessons multiple times in our lives. Lessons about setting boundaries, recognizing self-worth, or healing from past trauma. Each time we encounter a relationship that triggers these issues, we're given a chance to respond in a healthier, more evolved way than before. We might not catch it on the first go-around or the second, but with continued self-awareness and commitment to growth, we gradually ascend to a higher vantage point. On this spiral path, repetition isn't necessarily a sign of failure. It can be an indication that we're still refining our understanding. Perhaps we're learning to set boundaries more quickly, or we're noticing red flags sooner, or we're able to detach from unhealthy dynamics with less emotional turmoil than in the past. These incremental shifts add up, leading to a transformative outcome over time. Eventually, the spiral leads us to a place where the old patterns no longer resonate with who we've become. We look around and realize that we are no longer attracting the same types of people or relationships that once felt inevitable. The first and most crucial step in breaking any recurring pattern is awareness. If you notice that your relationships often end in betrayal, or your friendships frequently involve being taken advantage of, it's essential to identify the common denominators. Sometimes, this process can be uncomfortable because we might see how we contribute to the cycle. We might realize that we consistently ignore early red flags, or that we tend to people-please to the point of burnout, or that we retreat emotionally the moment someone wants to get closer. Recognizing these patterns without self-judgment is key. It can help to start a journal specifically for relationship reflections. After a breakup or a conflict with a friend, you can write down the sequence of events, how you felt, what actions you took, and what the other person did in response. Over time, patterns may emerge, certain triggers, specific boundary violations, repeated emotional reactions. Journaling offers a tangible record, allowing you to see recurring themes that might otherwise be lost in the emotional fog of a breakup or an argument. Given the strong influence of early experiences, another powerful tool in breaking these patterns is inner child work. This involves identifying the unmet needs and wounds from childhood that might be driving adult behaviors. For instance, if you find yourself consistently attracted to emotionally unavailable people, you could explore whether there's a younger part of you that desperately needed emotional validation but didn't receive it. By connecting with that inner child, imagining yourself at a younger age, speaking to them kindly, reassuring them, you begin to rewrite the narrative that you're inherently unworthy of love or support. Inner child work can be done through guided meditations, visualization exercises, or even in therapy with a counselor who specializes in trauma or attachment. The point is to bring compassion and understanding to the parts of yourself that may still be stuck in old emotional loops. Over time, this practice can help you replace toxic self-beliefs with more loving, affirming messages, thereby shifting the internal frequency you're broadcasting to others. While self-help strategies are incredibly valuable, there's no substitute for qualified, professional support when it comes to untangling deep-seated relationship patterns. Therapists, counselors, or coaches trained in attachment theory and trauma can provide a structured environment for self-exploration. They have tools like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, that can help rewire the emotional and cognitive pathways associated with repetitive relational behaviors. If you're struggling with codependency, borderline personality dynamics, or complex trauma, specialized therapy can be a game changer. You'll have the opportunity to safely revisit painful memories and reshape how your brain and body respond to triggers in the present. This professional assistance can dramatically accelerate the process of breaking long-standing relationship cycles, simply because you'll have guidance, accountability, and evidence-based strategies at your disposal. A critical element in reshaping your relationship patterns is learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them. This is where mindfulness practices such as meditation, breath work, and yoga can come into play. By regularly engaging in mindfulness, you cultivate an ability to notice your mental chatter and emotional responses in real time. Instead of reacting impulsively, perhaps sending a desperate text to a distant partner or shutting down the moment a friend needs emotional support, you can pause, take a breath, and choose a more balanced response. Meditation, in particular, helps develop a gap between stimulus and response. You might notice, I feel anxious because my partner hasn't texted me back, or I'm feeling overwhelmed because I sense someone wants more closeness than I'm used to. This moment of awareness creates a space for deliberate action rather than knee-jerk reactions shaped by past wounds. Over time, the more you practice this, the more you can step out of old patterns and into new, healthier ones. If you resonate with the energetic perspective, complementary practices like Reiki, chakra balancing, or energy healing can be supportive. These methods aim to clear blockages in your energetic field, helping release any emotional baggage that keeps you stuck in old dynamics. Affirmations can also be powerful if you use them in conjunction with deeper work. For instance, stating, I am worthy of healthy, loving relationships can take on more weight when you've also explored the early memories or traumas that made you doubt that worthiness in the first place. Gratitude practices and heart-focused meditations can help elevate your energetic frequency, shifting your state from one of fear or doubt to one of openness and trust. Although these practices are not a magic bullet, they serve as valuable tools in maintaining a higher vibration. They remind you that you have agency over your inner world, which in turn influences the outer connections you form. A cornerstone of breaking unhealthy relationship cycles is learning to set and maintain boundaries. Boundaries act like a protective fence around your emotional well-being. They're not about shutting people out or becoming cold and distant. Rather, they're a way to communicate your limits, needs, and values clearly. Whether it's telling a friend you can't stay on the phone for hours every night, or letting a romantic partner know you need open communication about finances, boundaries help define the space in which you can safely connect without losing yourself. Enforcing boundaries often feels uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to people-pleasing or if you come from a background where boundaries were never taught or respected. You might fear that setting boundaries will push people away. While that can happen, the people who genuinely respect and care for you will adapt to your boundaries, and those who resist them might not be aligned with your healthier self. Over time, setting boundaries becomes second nature, and you'll notice that you're no longer as attracted to or attractive to people who want to trample your emotional or physical space. Breaking deeply ingrained patterns isn't a swift or linear process. It's a journey that requires both perseverance and a gentle approach to oneself. You might slip back into old habits, date a carbon copy of an ex, or let a friend overstep your boundaries. These stumbles aren't failures. They're opportunities to practice what you've learned in a real-world setting. Each time you recognize you've backtracked, you have a new chance to course correct. This is why self-compassion is so vital. Criticizing yourself harshly for repeating an old pattern only fuels shame, which can perpetuate the very cycles you're trying to escape. Instead, you can acknowledge the slip, explore the triggers that led to it, and recommit to your new behaviors. Over time, These small, compassionate self-corrections build a foundation of resilience and self-trust, gradually transforming the landscape of your relationships. Our repeated relationship cycles can often feel like an inescapable labyrinth, looping us through the same types of emotional landscapes again and again. But as we've explored, these cycles aren't random, and we're far from powerless in the face of them. From a psychological standpoint, repetition, compulsion, and attachment styles can lock us into familiar, yet unfulfilling dynamics, influenced by the lessons we learned in childhood and replayed in adulthood. Energetically, our thoughts, beliefs, and unhealed traumas can emit frequencies that draw to us the very scenarios we most want to avoid. Spiritually, each new encounter with a familiar person can be viewed as an invitation to deeper self-awareness and growth, pushing us to break free from old stories and patterns. The path to freedom from these cycles involves a multifaceted approach. Awareness is paramount. Naming and noticing the patterns helps us see them for what they are. Therapy, counseling, or coaching can provide a safe space to unearth past wounds and practice new relational skills. Mindfulness, meditation, and energy work can support us in shifting our internal states, while techniques like inner child work and journaling help us reframe old narratives. Setting boundaries communicates our newfound sense of self-worth, challenging us to maintain the emotional fences that keep us grounded and respected. As we commit to this work, sometimes facing painful revelations, uncomfortable changes, and moments of vulnerability, we also open the door to more fulfilling connections. Over time, we might look back and see that the same old triggers no longer provoke the same reactions, or that we're effortlessly bypassing people who exhibit red flags we once overlooked. We may find ourselves attracting companions who are capable of mutual respect, emotional availability, and genuine care. This shift isn't merely an external phenomenon. It's a reflection of the internal transformation we've undergone, a testament to our resilience and capacity for growth. Remember, these patterns don't define you permanently. They are, in many ways, a roadmap to deeper self-understanding. Each time a familiar dynamic appears, you can ask, "What is this here to teach me?" And each time you answer that question honestly, you take another step toward rewriting your story. With patience, courage, and the willingness to face your own reflections, you can, and will, break the cycle. Ultimately, the relationships you cultivate will be those that resonate with your truest self, honoring the worth and wholeness you've come to embrace within.